Hello everyone, my name is Chrissy and welcome to my channel. So I'm doing my November 2020 wrap up. This will be a short video because I only got to 3 books this month. I was really focused on getting my papers and my tests done for school, and I have had my last classes of the semester, so I'll be able to kick back and relax and read a little bit more. But let's just jump into it. The first book I read is Liar for Hire by Tressie Lockwood, and this is a urban fantasy romance book that features 2 characters, Declan and Janessa. By the way, this book is a clean romance, and I hate to use that word clean, but think of it as like behind closed doors, fade to black type of romance. It does not have a dedicated sex scene, which is not a bad thing, but I just don't, I just recently found out in this video, I don't like using the word clean with those kind of romances. Anyway, learning about myself. Janessa and Declan are business owners together, and they're also best friends. They're also attracted to one another, but they don't want to get into a relationship with one another because Declan's not human, and Janessa doesn't think that Declan is going to be committed to her because she doesn't know that he's not human. And she thinks that he hasn't made a move because he just doesn't want to get married and he just doesn't want to be in a relationship. So those are their reasons. Now, as far as their business goes, they put it as Liar for Hire, but they sound more like private investigators because people hire them to either go take pictures or look into someone's background and investigate them. So that's my thoughts on it. The important part is that someone from Declan's past comes in and he hires both Declan and Janessa to look into someone for him. Well, unfortunately, this means that Janessa finds out who Declan is and, his magical abilities and all that kind of stuff, and that's the primary plot of the book. This is a really short read. It's 133 pages. And overall, I liked the ideas, but I wasn't a fan of how the pacing or world building went, mainly because a lot of it just wasn't shown at all. So, for example, we'd have a chapter, and as Declan and Janessa are going to talk about something, it kind of cuts off in the middle of the scene, or what I view as the middle of the scene. And then, in the next chapter, within, 2 or 3 sentences, it kind of summarizes what ends up happening from the last chapter. I wasn't really a big fan of that, and I was hoping that the world building would be a little bit more full. And I know that's hard in 133 pages, so I think part of it is just my preference. But, oh well. I will still give this author a try because I thought the writing that was there is pretty good, and I did like their ideas. The next book I read is The Lives of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch. Loch Lamora is an orphan in a city called Kamar, and this world is based off of medieval Venice, where you have a bunch of gangs that are thieves, and then one head of the gang named the Kappa. At any rate, Loch ends up being an orphan, and he gets taken under the wing of a person known as the Thief Maker. The Thief Maker sells Loch to a guy named Chains, who's a master thief, and who ends up teaching Loch everything he knows in his adult life. There we go. Fast forward years later, and Loch is the head of the Gentleman's Bastards, who is a really small group of thieves that target noblemen. Now, granted, this is a big no-no because the noblemen and the thieves have this secret peace where they don't bother one another and keep the peace between the people. So really the thieves are supposed to target middle class to really lower class citizens. But Loch goes against that, and he instead aims for the noblemen. Now he keeps this under shush, and he doesn't tell the head of the thieves about this, and instead makes it look like they just target the people they're supposed to. This is a great plot in and of itself, but now add in another person coming in and trying to take over the Kappa's role and dragging Loch around with him. So Loch, unfortunately, is trying to just swindle this one nobleman and getting waylaid by this guy who's trying to take over all the thieves. And poor Loch just wants money. At this point, poor guy. really solid fantasy book. I think out of all the fantasy books, this is my favorite of the year. The pacing is just really well done, and the world building is like A plus in my mind. Whenever the author does go back to explain like some of the history, I thought that it fit in really well and it didn't distract from the story for me at all. So bravo to Scott Lynch. I will definitely be reading the next book in the series. I think I bought the first 3 of the series, so I have the next 2. Definitely going to be reading those soon. By soon, it's probably going to be like a year. The next book I read is Marrying Winterbourne by Lisa Kleypas. It is the second book in the Ravenel series. I did a book review of the first book, which is Cold Hearted Rake, and I will link that down in the description. Now, in the first book, Helen and Rhys, who are the main characters of Marrying Winterbourne, had met in the first book. They were engaged, and then their engagement was broken off by the end of the first book because of a misunderstanding where Rhys tried to kiss Helen, and Helen resisted his advances. So Rhys thought that she didn't want to marry him, and that she was disgusted by him, and she wasn't. But Helen couldn't stand up for herself at that time. Well, Marrying Winterbourne starts off with Helen going to go get her man and getting the engagement back on. This book is primarily about the growth of Helen as a person, and also trying to navigate her finding out a family secret that may ruin her engagement with Rhys. Overall, I thought that the book was better as far as the romance department than the first book, and just as interesting with the historical perspective. So with the first book, I really liked the historical aspect of the novel, and in this book, I liked that historical aspect too, and I really love the characters. We get a doctor in there, a lady doctor, who is just really awesome, and she kicks butt, and she will, like, whack a fool with a cane. It's fantastic. I liked this book a lot better than the first one. I will be continuing on with the series, and I think that is Helen's sister's story, Pandora's story. So, I forgot what it's called, but I'll put a picture up somewhere in this field of vision. Have you read any of these books? If you have, what did you think about them? By all means, please let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that I did not stumble too hard in my word choices. I actually re-recorded this several times because I just did not like how I sounded or how I talked about the books and the word choices I used. And then I just kept stumbling over words, so... Luckily, though, we got through it. The end. Thank you so much. And may, as always, get lost in the book.